Hello and welcome. Thank you for choosing to spend some time with us. At the National Association of Women in Construction, otherwise known as NAWIC or NAWIC depending on your accent, we welcome women in construction and their allies from all walks of life, cultures, ages and stages in their career. NAWIC works to champion this diverse collective of great people doing great things in the construction industry. More specifically, NAWIC's Diversity and Inclusion Portfolio is focused on breaking down barriers, raising awareness, and creating opportunities for the least represented women within our industry. We hope that by sharing diverse stories in diverse ways, that we can empower, inform, and inspire not only people within our industry, but those hoping to join us. I am your host, Rachael Sharp, and I am looking forward to bringing you this story. Welcome to the NAWIC Couch.
Thank you.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Thanh Huynh. I'm from Hunter Management. It's been my own business that I've been running since 2006. So Hunter Management turns 18 this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's so exciting. So can you tell me about how you got into it? How did you found Hunter Management?
I kind of stumbled along. So I was at uni studying my first degree, which is an arts degree, and I was working part-time at Harris Scarf in their head office in their operations department. And through there, I was kind of exposed to operations, maintenance, a little bit of construction. And then from there, I kind of just went with, through that, other opportunities opened up. And then I found myself, after working at Harris Scarf, working at Arndale Shopping Centre in their centre management team. And that exposed me to shopping centres, retail. And then along the way, I moved to Melbourne for a short stint working in tenancy delivery and a little bit of retail design and fit-out work. And after working there for a while, I came back and opened up Hunter Management, merging a little bit of my operational experience and centre management experience and the tenancy delivery and fit-out works that I've been exposed to over the years.
Yeah, that is very cool. So you really identified that there was a gap in that kind of management consultancy within that retail space particularly and just thought you'd go for it?
It sounds really clever that you've said that, but I'm not going to lie. I didn't have that much insight and thinking at the time. I think, I was 23 when I started my own business, so I was very young.
Yeah.
And I don't think I identified a gap. I just thought, I reckon I could give this a go. Like if these people that I'm working with and working for can do this, it would be something that I would be able to do as well. And if not, at least give it a shot. So I gave it a crack and 18 years later, I'm still here. So
yeah. So that attitude that you have towards that, just I'm going to try it and see what happens. Where did that come from?
Possibly just being young and dumb and young and not realizing risk and not having any responsibility, being a young adult and not, thinking of having bills and too much responsibility to think about and not realizing that if things fail, I thought, what would be the worst at 23 years old? What would be the worst that would happen? I would just go out and find a job and work for someone else. So for me, it wasn't that scary to try. And if it tried and you did well, then great. And if you tried and it failed, it's still okay because it's not the end of the world. Just pick yourself up and keep going again.
Yeah.
So,
do you think you would have made the same decision at 33 or 43?
I don't think I would. I think having the decision and making the decision as a young person without the maturity and wisdom of what would happen if things go wrong, I don't necessarily think I would do that at this time and this stage of my life as a 30 or a 40-year-old. But as a young 20-year-old, it was not something that I thought about. It was just like, yeah, let's go. Let's just try and give this a go and have a crack.
Yeah, that's very cool. I wish I had more of your tenacity towards doing that kind of thing. I think that is very cool. I wanted to ask you, what do you think people need to know about your upbringing to understand who you are as a person today?
So my parents came over as refugees during the Vietnam War. So they came over in the late 70s. So I'm first generation Australian. And I guess growing up with parents from a different country and that classic refugee migrant story, we grew up very little. I had parents that didn't speak English and had no family and not a big support crew over here, not a lot of money. And so I grew up with not a lot, blue collar family working. And so a lot of my hard work ethic and trying to be successful and trying to make something for myself here is because of the opportunities that my parents have given me growing up, and also firsthand witnessing of what it would be like without, what life is like without. And so that has shaped who I am to make decisions of what I don't want my life to look like. So I work really hard to create a life that I would want for myself and my children.
Yeah. What did your parents do?
So Dad worked a little bit in building. So I guess he exposed me to the building side that I now have. So I have a builder's license and I do a lot of fit out works in shopping centres. And so when I was exposed to it as an adult, it was something that I was already exposed to as a young child. Not that I worked in and around the area, but just having and seeing your dad go to work with work boots on and, you know, doing a bit of general carpentry or some gyprocking, tiling, painting. He was that kind of handyman. And so I didn't shy away from that growing up because I was exposed to that. So my dad was a general sort of handyman builder. And then mum worked in sewing. And so she was a classic housewife that stayed home, but then she also did sewing and mending. And so the hard work, the long hours, the things that you do for your family, that was from my mum's side, my mum's influence, I would say.
Yeah, that's quite incredible and quite different backgrounds. And how long were your parents living in Australia before? Do you have any siblings? You and your siblings arrived?
I do. I have 2 older siblings and 1 younger. So the older siblings were already born when my parents came over. So I came along 3 years later after they arrived. So I was born in the early 80s.
Yeah. So you all learn English together then?
I would love to say that my parents speak really good English, having been here for 40 years.
Yeah.
But they, growing up, immersed themselves around people and cultures that they were familiar with. So they stayed in the Asian community. They went to Asian grocery. They went to an Asian doctor. So I'm not proud to say that they don't speak fluent English, even though they should, but they know enough to get by now.
Was that ever a challenge for you, like in Australian schools growing up around a lot of kids who had probably been born here, their parents were born here, doing a lot of English speaking and English Western traditions? Was that ever something that was challenging for you?
Growing up at the time, I didn't realise it was so challenging, but as an adult or as a teenager and reflecting and looking in hindsight, I could definitely see the 2 worlds that I lived in. So I'd go home and live in an Asian household.
Yeah.
We would speak Vietnamese or Chinese. I'm Vietnamese and Chinese background. So we'd speak Vietnamese or Chinese growing up. We would eat the food of our culture and we would have our, social norms appropriate to our culture. And then I'd go to school and then I'd conform to the Western, school and then listen to conversations with other school kids about what they did in the weekend. And I was like, that's completely different to what we did. And, football or like eating a meat pie or Christmas, they weren't things that were things and conversations that we had. Like we didn't celebrate Christmas, and that might have been because my parents weren't exposed to a lot to the English culture, but also perhaps because we were poor. And so there was always a bit of me that had to mix and kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Shape shift.
Yeah, like
between two.
assimilate
Yeah,
sort
that's
of
right.
into
And
it.
just change and adjust to my surroundings and situations. So I became really good at adapting, and then being able to flip between languages and, understanding and speaking to my Asian aunties and uncles, as in no relatives, but like family friends. We wouldn't just call them by their first name. That's something that was different in Western culture. You'd see your auntie or your uncle or your parents' friends and you just call them by their first name or a Christian name. We would never do that in Asian culture. We'd always refer to them as an adult or an uncle. And so being able to understand that at a young age and just being able to adapt and adjust yourself to your environment is something that I learned very quickly as a young child.
Yeah, that would probably be quite a good skill set to have coming into construction and going from on-site to office meetings and clients to tradies and being able to fit in and communicate with a wide variety of people in a way that you can be heard and understood.
Yes, absolutely. I find that in my business, because I offer a few different services, we do project management and tenancy delivery, retail design, and building as well. So I could be on site with tradies in my work boots and sweeping the floors on one day, and then that afternoon or the next day I'll be in executive meetings in a professional outfit with full hair and makeup, just talking and presenting reports and presentations to key stakeholders. So I chop and change my language, my personality to adapt to whoever I'm working with and the stakeholders I'm working with. And I find that it's a really useful skill to have, to be able to chop and change.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think that's something that is quite an asset within our industry, to be able to go into a conversation with the executives and the C-suite and clearly articulate something that you're trying to explain to them, and then in the next meeting go and have a talk to the tradespeople on site and convey the same concept, but in a way that is the highest level for the C-suite that needs to know it, and the real details for the tradies that need to do it. So yeah, that's probably a really good lesson that you picked up when you were younger, learning how to navigate all of that, because you probably just do it without even thinking about it now. I emailed you to ask you if you're interested in coming on the NAWIC Couch, because I remembered that you were nominated for a NAWIC award a few years ago, and I was so impressed that you founded your own business in your early 20s. And I just want to read your reply to my email to you, if that is okay. You said, what a lovely email to receive this morning. Thank you. Oh, that day. The day I wanted to crawl into the earth and die. Feeling rather exposed and vulnerable, I honestly really struggled with that night. So I'm grateful that I left some sort of memorable impression on you. Not skeptical, more so curious, but also triggers the imposter syndrome in me again. So you have a bachelor's degree, a master's, a collection of certificate fours, graduate certificates, a team of people who work for you, long-standing client relationships. You speak at least 3 languages based on this discussion. You're a mother, a lecturer, a mentor, have a passion for community engagement, and on top of that, you founded and managed a business that would be legally an adult now if it were a person. So, given that we're both data people, I did some research. The numbers show that not even 10% of startups tend to last long term, and yours is an adult. So with all of that in mind, I'd love it if you could talk to me about imposter syndrome. Has it always been there for you? What do you think it would take for it to go away? Because I'm out of breath after reading that list of things. So,
oh my goodness. I feel exposed, but in a very good way. I remember that day, the NAWIC Awards. Yes, that pulled a lot of emotions. I felt really emotional that day. It wasn't, I would say, it completely challenged me and took me out of my comfort zone. Imposter syndrome, I'd say, is with everyone, regardless of who you are, where at what level you are in your life, and what you've done and what successes you've achieved. So I think it's a healthy thing to have.
Do you really think it is with everyone though? Because I've spoken to a lot of people who don't have that.
I was just thinking, so going through some of the research I've done, so we'll touch on the thesis in a sec, but I would say imposter syndrome is something that I've always had. I don't know where it's come from, but I've always had it, not feeling like I'm good enough or deserving enough. And it would be like, oh, you want to talk to me? Like, what do you want to talk to me for? Like, what can I offer and what can I contribute to this conversation? But at the same time, when I stick my hat on, like, well, what do you think? You've done all those things that you have just listed, but at the same time, you can't help but feel, I'm sure there's someone else you could speak to that would have more experience or wisdom to offer than me. So it's a hard question, and I'm sure that I'll always have a part of the imposter syndrome. It's just, I feel like it's really hard. It's hard in some ways to feel like you're the person that people would want to talk to, because it's not often common that we are the types that people would want to speak to as well. And when I say we, I think of, women in construction. I think of young females when I started in my business.
Mm-hmm.
I think of women of colour or people of colour. So being an Asian background, it's not common that anyone would want to speak to the likes of people like us. So I think representation might help. But in my experience, whenever anyone asks me to speak or do anything, I always think, why me? Even though I've got, a list of things that I have accomplished. And I think that part of my reason why I accomplished all of these things is because I feel like myself and my experience may not be enough. So I'd have to just keep adding to this CV of mine to prove that, I am worthy of these conversations, and I can speak about project management, and I can speak about building, and I can speak about business because I've got this list of things. So, yeah.
You touched on there that you think that particularly women and women of colour and young women aren't asked to do these kinds of things. Do you have a hypothesis on why that is?
So the research that I've done, and it's we all know this. I think that we're preaching to the converted. We all know these things. It's just getting the message out to everyone else. Is that typically, and by history standards, these conversations aren't normally had with females as it is. Like, so in my master's degree in project management, we can talk about this now, I guess, is, one of the things that I had to do was write a thesis. And, with all the students that had to pick their topics, and we got to have some time to choose our topics of what we'd write about. People were wanting to talk about agile project management or the risks of project management, or, all these things that they could do to improve project management or the industry. And I chose to talk about the barriers that women face in male-dominated industries in South Australia. And I remember talking to my supervisor, and she was like, it's very grey, the topic you've chosen, because it's not really project management, but it is project management. And I was like, it's more like social anthropology or social psychology that you're wanting to go down. I said, this is really important to me, and it's something that I'd be interested in understanding why there's problems for females in this industry. And yes, I can do a topic that is very functional and very practical and pragmatic, but I actually want to touch on the softer side of the industry. And so I chose to talk about and write about that topic, and some of the research that I found as to sort of why males tend to get chosen or, for doing any of these things. It just comes from, there's so many facets that can be improved. Like there's so much research about all the reasons why. And so, I don't want to go and rattle off all the things that we already know, but things like, growing up in primary school or just in the family unit of gender bias with picking toys for our young daughters and our young sons, and then going to school in primary school and high school, and the stereotypes of what subjects females and males should be choosing, and the support they get, and then going off into pathways into either TAFE and university, the biases and the problems that are there that aren't fixed or aren't looked at or just ignored from sort of college, TAFE, and then university. And then from, we're going from social family unit to their formative years, and then to their senior years, then going out into the workforce and their career as well, where, all of these are perpetuated every time they just go to another layer. Then you go through their workplace, and then there's industry, where workplaces or industry, there are biases there as well, whether it's inside their place of employment, whether it's inside the industry. And then you come with females getting to an age where they will have children and start thinking about raising families at the beginning of their career. And then at the end of the career, where they might have to look after parents and pets. So all of these responsibilities normally fall onto the female. And so as you can see, from the time that females are sort of born, there is this sort of starting line of where things can go and slow them down, I'll say, and men or males can get further in their career. Then each time it deviates, and then over the amount of years of one's life, the difference between a male and a female success in the industry is huge. So, when I look at and I speak to people about, what we can do to identify, the identifiers are all there. We sort of know what they are and where we can go and improve. Now it's about going and actually putting these plans into place and actually, having actions, like proactive actions that we can do to help mitigate those things from occurring.
There is so much there. You sent me your thesis and I did read it. Thank you for sharing it with me. My stick out question, so you did it 7 years ago.
That sounds like such a long time ago.
I'm so sorry. If you did it again today, do you think there would be any changes in the data? Good, bad, the same? What do you think?
I actually would like to do it again at some stage when I can find the time to do it. But it would be interesting for me to retest the hypothesis to see if the results would change.
Yeah.
I think if I had to do it again today, I feel like the results would be very similar. I feel like there might be some improvement, but it won't be significant enough to have made a big change.
When you came out and said you wanted to do that as your topic, was that because of an event that had happened or just your lived experience, or you just felt really strongly that it was what you wanted to look into at the time?
It's personal experience. I'm just my personality, I often joke with my contractors and friends and family and my staff that if I was born 20 or 30 years ago in a different country, I'd be stoned to death. Either that or I would submit and comply and I wouldn't even recognize a person that I would be. I'm very strong advocate for women's rights, empowering women to make good decisions independently. And I feel strongly about sort of the environment and female issues and social justice. And so that topic came very easily to me because it's something that I could see where I could gather some data and present something and actually be the person behind the data to be able to interpret it and say, this is what the results show. This is a problem. This is how we might be able to fix it. We need to have a conversation about this. So,
do you ever get tired talking about those kinds of topics and looking into the data and seeing the results? And I guess what I mean by tired is, when people talk about the fatigue of doing a certain thing over and over or having the same discussions over and over, is it ever something where you're just like, oh goodness, I wish this just wasn't a problem anymore. I'm sick of talking about it, or that doesn't exist for you?
I think for me, I don't talk about it too often. I know what the results are. I know what the data says, and there's been a lot of talking about it. So for me, how I feel like I can make the difference is by acting and living it through my actions today, how I raise my children. So I've got 2 daughters. They are 12 and 14 this year. So the way I raised my children was there were no barriers to them. So my role modeling to them is that I am a strong, independent female and I don't need to rely on other people for me to make decisions for our lives. And then when I'm parenting them when they were younger, I would always give them options. There was no barrier between male things and female things, their toys, their choice of their attire. When we talk about, my kids are pre-teens now, we talk about their careers. Because I've been in and around building sites, I've taken them with me to building sites. They've been around when I've met tradesmen and I'm working with tradesmen. And for them to see mum is going to site and she's the one telling all the boys what to do, it's really empowering for my kids to see that. So I feel like through my actions and through my role modelling, I at least am helping shape the lives of 2 young children and their little group of friends that also are exposed to me.
Yep.
And then when it comes to my business, my decisions that I make in business, I am the boss of my business. I am the leader of my team, whether it's contractors or whether it's my staff. And so all the decision making and everything comes back to myself. And so when I'm leading my team, I make decisions based on X, Y, and Z. And so I feel like the fact that I am leading by example is me helping the industry. So I don't need to go and speak and, for people to come out and see me just doing my thing, raising my children and working and having meetings and presenting. I feel like that's role modeling what I am trying to help make a difference in. So
There's this saying that we talk about a lot at NAWIC, and it goes, you can't be what you can't see. And I've grappled with that internally quite a bit and had a lot of discussions with people about it, because a lot of us in construction are doing things that we didn't see happening, which means we can be what we can't see. But then there is, to what you're saying as well, showing people how it's done, setting that role model, setting the standard, bringing people along and showing them what it can be like to really set that I can be this and I can do it this way and I can still be myself, and, you know, bring it all out in a way that makes you proud for how you conduct yourself and what legacy you want to leave behind for your daughters as well. What do you think about that saying? You can't be what you can't see.
I mean, I didn't see it myself, but it doesn't mean that the trailblazers that are leading the way for others can't step up and do that. I think that there are more trailblazers leading the way. So the more people that step up and role model this to the younger generations, the more impact and the more easier it will be. Yeah, but I agree when you say you can't be what you can't see. I guess for me, I could say that my parents' influence may have helped that. The building industry from my dad's influence, and then my mum's hard work ethic in doing really long hours just to provide for us it definitely would have influenced me. So even though I didn't see it in construction, you know, I took a bit of this and I took a bit of that and went, you know, I don't want this life, I want this life. And I just sort of was really determined to get there.
Yeah, I resonate with that. That's really special, I think. Your website, your business website. Tell me about Hunter, actually, the name. So there's this part on your website on the very first page where you open it up and it explains the origin of the name and how to pronounce it. You can explain it because it's your name.
So the business is Hunter Management. It's pronounced Hunter, but it's spelled Huntha, which is made up of my name, my full name. So my first name is Tan, Tha. My middle name is Nok, which is the N. And then my surname is Huynh, which is Huynh. And my business name, and I was thinking of, you know, creating my own business, and I got to think of a business name, and it took me ages to come up with all these kind of business names and ideas and what might sound, you know, cool. And I landed on Hunter Management. And the reason why I have to stick it on my website as to how to explain it is because it always gets pronounced Huntha. Even with clients that have been with me for over 12 years or longer, they pronounce it as Huntha because that's how literally you would spell it, but phonetically it's Hunter, according to how you'd pronounce my name. So, you know, I've had times in the past when I've had business mentors my whole life. And so for anyone out there that's interested in setting their own business, or females that want to, you know, go into leadership roles, I would highly recommend putting yourself in touch with a business mentor, because they keep you, it's just wisdom and guidance that's and another set of eyes that are independent and impartial. So when you're having moments of imposter syndrome or can I do this, or just someone to bounce ideas off, you know, a business mentor is someone handy to have in your life, just even as a mentor, not business related, but just having mentors in your life and having elders in your life. But yes, I remember one time I was talking to my business mentor, and he was like, you know, if people are struggling with how to pronounce Hunter and they're still saying Huntha after the 5th, 6th, 7th year, how about you drop the H from your name and just pronounce it Huntha. And I was like, no, that's not even an option. My name is Tan, Thanh. And so people will learn how to say Huntha.
Yourself included.
People will learn how to say Hunter.
Yes.
Otherwise, you know, they'll just learn it. It's not something that I'm going to accommodate to change to suit other people. That's just our identity, and I wasn't willing to change that. And so, yeah, Hunter, it had to be put on the website for those that were curious about me or wanted to learn about me. Then at least they could, when they call me, be able to pronounce the name correctly. So
yeah, so it's, you never were willing to take away anything from your identity. You knew who you were and you knew what you wanted the business to be, and never wavered from that. Was there ever any doubt there?
In terms of the business name, no doubt. I was very clear I wasn't going to change the name of my business. But in terms of my identity in other ways and my values, when you're starting out in business, you get tested a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in any small business, I'm sure lots of business owners can relate to this. For me, the first couple of years is, oh my goodness, like, am I going to be able to get work? Like, I don't know if I've got long-term sustainability in this business. This is a crazy idea. The first thing I would do, which was always a red flag to me that I needed to book in to see my mentor, was to go into Seek and be like, okay, project managers or tenancy coordinators, how much are they worth? Can I get a job tomorrow if I needed to? And then based on the salary that was offering at the time of like, okay, this is how much I'm worth. It's okay. Like, someone can employ me. You are employable. You'll be able to find a job. And so when I was wavering and I wasn't sure about my business, that's where I'd go to. And every time I'd go there, I'd be like, okay, you're not having a good day. What can you do to get yourself out from this hole that you're digging yourself? It's not helping you. So, then as I reflect over the years, I did that less and less and less. And so I don't know the last time, like, I might just go into Seek for fun to have a look at, what's going on. But it's not something that I needed to do to attach to my self-worth and my identity. But going out in business and in my career, I would say that there are times where your values and your identity is tested. And then I think as I've become more confident in myself and my beliefs and where I stand in the industry, I've become more confident in sticking to my values. There are lots of things that I see that I don't agree with. And so if it happens outside of my area, my control, not much I can do about it. But if it's within my control and power, I will always stand by my integrity and the values that I have in my business and as a person individually.
What are those values?
Respect, family, honesty, integrity. So just being a good person. And so I expect my children to live by those values as well. And then in business, I'm very big on respect, integrity, kindness, inclusivity, very similar to my family values as well. So when I am in business and I come across a situation where my values are tested, for example, it might be a new client that comes through and expects me to do X, Y, and Z, or an existing client that expects me to do X, Y, and Z, that makes me feel not comfortable. Once upon a time, early on in business, I would have bent and molded because, you're still unsure of yourself. You're still trying to find your place in the industry and in your company and in your business. You've got bills to pay. But as I've become more confident in what we offer and our experience and our expertise and knowledge in the area that we work in, it's a very specialized and it's very niche, and we're very good at what we do. When I come across these situations where I'm asked to deviate from my values, I will decline the work or I will decline the client. And I've become stronger in using my voice these days, whereas once upon a time, I'd just be like, yes, I'll do this. Yes, I will do that. Even if it's not within the scope of works, even if it means I have to work until midnight, I will say yes because, women are born to say yes to everything. And so nowadays I'll be like, I can't do this right now, or this is not within our scope. I can absolutely do this for you, but I will need to give you a fee for the extra work that we're offering to you. So I've learned to use my voice a lot more calmly and confidently. So I used to get angry a lot. I'd say yes, and I'd go and get really angry with my staff or take it out on I don't know what, but I'd be an angry person. And I'm still angry, by the way. Like I'm not saying this, I'm this innocent person. Like, for those that know me and work with me, I'm really passionate one way or the other. Like, I'm really loud, I'm really emotional. I get angry, I swear like a trooper. Like, that's just me being real.
Yep.
And I feel like I'm relatable, and that's why I get along with my clients so well, because I can talk to, tradies and I'm like, oh yeah, and they don't have to be like, oh, sorry, you're a female, I can't swear. Sorry, like, you just be yourself and I'll be myself, and we'll just form a relationship that works for us. It doesn't have to be that typical female-male builder, female coming on site relationship. If I make myself approachable and personable, I find that I build deeper bonds with the people that I work with. So
That leads me on. I've got a question written here. I've got that your website is teeming with personality. What that tells me about you is that you're not afraid to be yourself or encourage those around you to do the same. My question is, has there ever been a time that this has gotten in the way for you? So that sort of that fun, that outgoing, you ask the staff questions on your website and the 3 things they'd say about you, and there's a picture of, is it Frankie the dog? Frankie the dog, big fan of Frankie. Has that ever, do you feel like made people take you less seriously, or that you're just there to have fun and not, do you know what I'm trying
Yes,
to
I do.
Yeah.
Very good question. So it comes back to my values as well. So I can't present you a way that I'm not. So if you want me to be a person that I am, that's not me. I'm not the person for you. So throughout my, history of my business and even my friendships, and actually just me in general, this is just me in general, I am who I am, unapologetically. And I might hide facets of myself. So, the typical, you wear different masks to go to work, and that you'd have different from your friendships and different from your family life. I am still, on the whole, who I am when I present to the world. And so for some clients, I'm too much. Like I am too loud or too vulgar or whatever it is that I am. But if they don't like my style, then I am not the person for them. They cannot be my clients if we can't get along. So I'm really, really big on relationships. So relationships with my children, relationships with my friends, not many, but they are real and deep and meaningful relationships. With my team, we were only a small team, but we're very tight-knit. With my tradies, some of them have been with me for over 10 years. And, working in tradie life, it's a testament to my business, I would say, and to the relationships that I have with my tradesmen, because how the industry is so busy. There's so much work out there for tradesmen. And I can get on a call and say, hey, I need you tomorrow. And they will move hell or high water, is that the saying? They will just make it work, and they will drop everything to put me and to fix and help me fix my problems. Like we've worked on some very tricky problems in the last, I'd say, the last couple of years, where I've had I've been put on a project where we've had very, very strict timeframes, deadlines that couldn't be moved, and projects that were outside of my control before I sort of inherited the project. And the only reason why I could make this work is because of the relationships I have with the tradesmen and the connections I have in the industry. And so if you were just any person and rang up the phone, and if these tradesmen and these connections didn't have any respect for you, they just wouldn't pick up the phone, or they would just say, no, I'm sorry, I'm busy, I'm booked out. But because I'm very big on building relationships and keeping good relationships that are genuine within my life, I was able to deliver a project. I'm just thinking of a project where it was ridiculous timeframes. And, we worked, I think the day before opening, I think I was working 36 hours straight just to get it open, and we opened. But it's not because of me, it's because of my relationships with all the people behind me that could make that happen.
Yeah.
And so for me, you either like me or you don't. That's a good thing, because you either like me and we can work really well together. And if you don't like me, great, we just don't have to work together. But I'm a very strong personality, and I don't change, because I'm known for getting results, and I'm known for having a good team behind me that will support me, and we can get things done. So
I really appreciate you sharing that, and it resonates with me a lot, particularly that part where you said it can be too much or too loud or too this, or I feel like there's always something that people are too something of, and it's a battle between leaning into who you actually are and staying true to those values and going in the direction that you believe is right, and not giving into that temptation to make yourself smaller or fit into the gap just to move along with things that could be mediocre. It's like you said, you seem really clear to me that you're like, it's either going to be really great and it's going to work, or it's not, and I'm not compromising in the middle. It's either one or the other. And that's, like you said, how you form those deep relationships and how you get things delivered, because people either respect that or they don't. They get it or they don't. They'll work with you because they also believe in the mission and where you're trying to go with it, or it's not something they want to participate in, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people in our industry, particularly women, who could take a lot out of that. You're not to anything if you're being yourself, and if you're being true to your values and what you want to do, then it's just the right amount.
And I would say from your comment previously about being too fun, or am I being too fun and people don't take you seriously? I think the reputation that we have in the industry, because of being around for so long, there's all this history that shows that there are results that are there, and they're all good results. So I would like to think that our reputation in the industry, myself and my business, it's good. And then when it comes to my team of staff and my team of tradies, we absolutely have fun. We can have fun on site. But then also there are days where it's like, we're not mucking around today. Like, it's funny because I can come on site and everyone will be able to tell whether I'm in a good mood. And I can come on site and they know that she's not mucking around today. And if I walk around and I see something, then I'm like, what's the update with this? What's going on with this? And they know that she's Tarn mode is on today. Yeah. And so I give her the answers that she wants, and there's no mucking around because we're 3 days out from opening. So there's always time for play, but there's always time for rolling up your sleeves and doing the hard work as well. And so I balance that, because you can't just, so what I don't understand about other competitors or businesses that I see in the industry is that their motto is just keep whipping their team. Just whip them as hard as you can. Just make them go faster, faster, faster. Whether it's your staff and your employees or whether it's your tradesmen, it's like, let's win this deal and then let's go back to the tradesmen and then cut them even more. So we make money and then we just undercut them, or either they take the contract or they don't. My motto with my staff and with my traders, and they all know it, is that we all eat together, which means that if they lose money, I'm not going to be happy. And if I make money and I don't want them to know that they've lost out, we are all in this together. We all eat together, which means that we all have to do well in business, because what's the point in business? We all have families to go home to. We all have bills to pay. And I don't feel like it's very ethical having a successful business at the cost of my team, or at the cost of quality, or at the cost of my client. And so I fight for my tradies equally as much as I fight for my team, as equally as much as I fight for my clients. I expect my tradies to do their best thing by my project, which will deliver to the client. Equally, I expect that when the clients were giving a price, the clients will accept it, or they don't have to, but they'll accept it. But I don't go back and undercut my tradesmen, because for me, it's about doing business ethically and with integrity. There are other business models that it's like, go back and shave 10% off your price if you want the job. That is not a mindset that I have. And when I do, there are moments where I may have to do that to win a job, or I may have to do that for a long-standing client that has a small budget, or whatever the reasons are. But because I don't ask this very often of my team, as soon as I ask them, they know Tarn doesn't ask this often. So when she does ask me, it must be because we need to do this to win the job and get it over the line. They will all gracefully accept, and they will all reduce profit or whatever it is to get the job done. So because I've got a long-standing, really good open book relationship with my contractors and tradesmen, and I treat them really well, I find that it pays more fold than it does when you're just trying to whip them and just work them harder. Yeah. That's not how business should be.
There's really no business without relationships, right? And I suppose it's how you manage and foster those relationships and create them and maintain them that really sets the tone for what your business and working relationship with them is going to be like. And I feel that it also really translates to the success of the projects, those relationships and how you manage each other. I hope that more people in our industry can take on that kind of philosophy, because they can be honest, hard, tough, like no BS conversations, but you can also be a human, have a good time, get to know people, show up with empathy.
That's right.
And it doesn't make you any less good at those technical, tough things just because you've been able to have a conversation about something really tough that happened with them on the weekend. And I don't know how we get that through to people more, but I hope it's something that the industry is learning and watching others do, like yourself, and thinking, oh yeah, I can see how those things can be successful for more than just business owners, but also for people trying to build up their own careers and their personal brands. And yeah, I think it's really important. I wanted to ask, what do you love about construction?
The satisfaction of creating something out of nothing. I love the relationships I have with my contractors and tradesmen and clients. The fact that if there's something wrong or I've got an issue in my personal life and my clients and contractors are ringing up with care and concern for me, tells me that I'm doing something right in my life with the relationships that I have. So I'm so proud of the clients and the contractors that I have, because and my team as well, because there's always a care factor that's important. Like I don't hear stories of clients where, you know, all they care about is the bottom line and the results. And there's many of them out there. But I also have clients that were like, hey, Tan, haven't heard from you in 2 weeks, or I've heard so-and-so, this has happened to you. Are you okay? That actually exists out there in the world if you choose the right clients and to surround yourself by the right people around you. I'm also really, really proud that I have got my own business and that I am able to show up in the world and lead by example for other people behind me, but especially for my children as well. So, you know, when they go to school and they have to do a slideshow presentation about someone they look up to, one of my daughters, it was one of her primary school class assignments in year 3 or year 4. And people were going and doing presentations of Michael Jordan or Barack Obama. And then my daughter wants to talk about her mother. And it's like, my mum, she's the boss of this business. And these are pictures of her on site. She tells all the boys what to do. And, you know, this is the before picture of this job. And this is us on site because we got to test the playground equipment before anyone else did.
Yeah.
And then here it is finished. Now, this is the before, this is the after. And at the same time, she can take time off and go to school and do class readings with me. Like, that makes me immensely proud to be able to do that and show my children the opportunities that they can have in life. And so all of those things.
Do you think that's your purpose in life, this legacy that you're leaving for the construction industry and your daughters?
I don't know. But yeah, given the fact that I'm very big on social justice and being an advocate for females and the environment, I would say that it has something to do with those areas. So if I could leave anything that's to do with those areas, that would make me really proud to have done some work in this life.
I think you should probably be proud of what you've already achieved. And I'm sure everyone in your life and your daughters and your parents are all proud of you as well. What do you think you would like to change about the construction industry?
There's lots of changes that still need to take place. I don't feel like these things would take place overnight. It was interesting in one of the articles I was reading in my research in a thesis was it'll take 3 generations for us to even equal male and female for the gender equality pay gap. It'll take 3 generations for that to take place. So it's not even something that I'll see in my lifetime, it's something you won't see in your lifetime. At the current rate, if it takes us as long as we are going now, which is at a snail's pace, 3 generations. So if we don't want that to happen, we need to take more action now. Taking action, there are so many things that you can do. So as a person, as an individual, in your family unit, in the way that you have conversations with your children, the way that you see as a person, as a member in society, the school education system, the industry, the employment. Like, there's so many places that you can make change that it'll take a long time if we don't take drastic measures now.
You would like people to look into those areas that we know are the problems and start trying to actively contribute towards making those changes faster than a snail's pace. It's rather than just waiting for these things to happen and relying on others or big companies or governments or whoever to fix the issues. It's looking into some of those smaller things you just mentioned and being like, all right, how can I positively contribute here? Maybe I can't change the whole industry tomorrow, but I can give my daughters a choice of whatever toys they want to play with. I can change the language when I'm talking about tradies. I can, rather than saying tradesmen, I can say tradespeople or whatever it is. It's what I got out of what you said was look at all the things and pick something and start trying to make some changes in those areas.
I don't feel like there should be grand things in place.
Yes.
Like that's what we need. Government or industry or employers or educational institutions can take place. But you don't need to wait for the big things to happen for change to be able to take place at grassroots. You know, there's a saying that anything that's happened that's major in life has only ever happened at grassroots level. And so in my way, even though I'm not contributing anything big, by saying that, I mean like there's nothing grand about what I'm doing that I feel like I'm doing. Like
you're underselling yourself again.
I feel like I'm still making a difference, and it's simply by leading by example.
Yeah.
So, you know, we don't have to wait for anyone or anything to come along and rescue us or make the change. You just be the change that you want to see in the world. So,
and I think sometimes people feel like they need to make that big change or have this big impact or do this massive project, but if you're changing the perspectives of a couple people around you, which then impacts how they go about something, which then impacts how those people go about something, it's that classic butterfly effect. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture to have a huge impact.
I was on having a conversation with some other people about, you know, one of the things that we speak about is, you know, women being emotional at work, or women being emotional sort of in the workplace, or women just being emotional in general. And for me, you don't need to, there is always place for heart. I find that in the females that I work with and around, one advice, and I don't know if it's advice, it's just something that has worked for me and that I see in other females around me. I'm just thinking, you know, I wish you could see this and, you know, see it from my perspective. But when women are around in work, I find that there is always a place where you can be heart-centered. So we're not telling women to be like ballsy men that fart and burp and swear. Like, you don't need to be a man because we're not men, we are females. So be true to our gender. But then also you can still do business and not be an asshole. Like, you don't have to be a prick to get the same results. So I see lots of female managers or female businesses that they feel like they have to embody what it is to be like that patriarch or that male, you know, egotistical. You don't have to do that. You can still get results by being this firm female leader that's clear and calm, but with a heart. You can still empathize and still get better results actually by not being an asshole. But then you get to the emotional bit, where I see as well when I'm going to industry or networking functions and I'm sitting on a table of 10 and women feel like the need to have to talk about female stuff. I don't know how to describe that, but female stuff. So I'm sitting next to a person as an example. We're at an industry event, don't know this person. And the only thing they can talk to me about is, do you have children? It's a very typical question of females, like, you know, do you have children? Who's looking after your children? That kind of stuff. And I don't normally, like I've spoken about my children on today's session, but I actually don't normally talk about my personal life just because it's just something I don't do. I'm very private and personal. But they'll say, oh, do you have children? Like, oh, yes, I do. That is all. Until you ask me the next question, as in like, how old are they, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't feel the need to divulge. But they'll be like, oh, okay, since we're talking about children, I've got a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old. Here's a wallet. Let me show you my photos of my children. And it's like, women can do better than that. When you go to an industry event or whether it's just client stakeholder meeting, there are more conversations you can have that are beyond that family unit. Like, your identity is more than a mother. And I just hope that females can see that they can offer more than that. And so if they broaden their horizons on their interests outside the family unit and broaden their horizons in things they want to learn about, they'll be able to have better conversations that don't perpetuate that typical female conversation, because we don't want those conversations. But yet when we go out there, they're the conversations we're having.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's safe and because it's normal. But we don't want to be normal and we don't want to be safe anymore. We want to be safe, absolutely, but we want to make a change. So we don't need to talk about these things. Talk about what's going on in the industry. Talk about, find other topics that it's very mutual and safe to talk about, like whatever. It doesn't have to be the children and the family and how you don't really want to be here because I've got to pick up my kids at 5:30 or 7:30. I went through all of these things when I was starting out my business, but I didn't talk about the struggles. And absolutely there were struggles, but I didn't feel the need to have to talk about it all the time. I dealt with it and I handled it, and then I presented myself in a different way for my clients and my projects, because you would be absolutely judged. Whether it's right or wrong, you're absolutely going to be judged by it. So if you don't want to perpetuate it, show a different narrative, speak another narrative, be the change you want to see. So,
do you feel like perhaps the pendulum has swung too far? And if this isn't what you mean, please correct me, but it's almost like we were in a place where we couldn't talk about it at all. Don't bring up kids, don't talk about your family, that's just strictly professional if you want to make it here. And now it's almost like we went through a transition to make it safe to talk about those kind of things, which is great. But now it's sort of, we've now then painted people with this brush of, oh, well, that's what they talk about.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Once upon a time, we were told not to talk about it. And I guess that's what I'm saying. So I don't know if it's right or wrong. This is just my personal experience. I just find that when we're out, it doesn't serve you if that's all you can bring to the table. Talk about your project. Talk about what challenges are you finding at the moment in your project that you're working on, and talk about it to the other person so that you can share knowledge. We're at an industry event or whatever it is, talk about industry topics and exchange information and get to know other projects and talk about your accomplishments and your challenges, rather than talking about something that's not really related. And I'm not saying to not talk about it, but I just don't feel like you need to, because then you just perpetuate that conversation. Because then some people are like, why do you have to ask me whether who's looking after my children? Why do you have to ask me how many kids I have? And then you get offended by that. But then we talk about it. So I'm not saying it's an easy answer, because it's like, it's everything is so sensitive right now, and no one really knows what you can and can't say. Like, oh, you're pregnant. Oh, sorry, I'm allowed to talk about your pregnancy? Or sorry, let's not talk about your pregnancy. Like, you don't know what is right and what is wrong. And there is no right or wrong. You just have to keep trying anyway. I don't know whether I'm doing things correctly, wrongly, or rightly, but I still show up in the world and just do my best that I can. And if I make mistakes, then you learn and you move on. So
I wonder if it's almost like we're losing that ability to let people speak in drafts almost. We expect everything to be polished and well considered and perfect, that if you talk about something and fumble on it a bit, or if you maybe don't have all your facts straight, or you perhaps said something but maybe you wouldn't stand behind what you said in 3 days' time or 2 months or whatever it is, we pin people to it. Like, but you said this or you did that, are we forgetting that people learn and grow and change opinions, and are we making space for that in our industry, but more generally as well? And how do we sort of navigate and have those conversations with the grace that nobody knows everything. We're not perfect, and we might say something really strongly now but not mean it in 6 months' time when we've got some more perspectives. I feel like we can really get stuck on pinning people to something that they've said and forget that people grow up and change.
And I don't think, my personal opinion is that it's not conducive. So, for example, going back to my values again, don't say something you don't mean.
Yeah.
Don't do something that you don't mean.
Yeah.
For me, actions speak louder than words. So I don't have fancy mission statements in my business. People know my values because I talk about my values and I live my values. I don't feel the need to have to put it on, a display on the side of my car on my website, because if you look through my community page, you'll see the sort of values that I want to embody through my actions that take place. So I don't feel like you need to do that. I also feel like people get offended very easily. So, and that's part of why having really strong relationships and getting to know a person really helps me, because I say things that offend people all the time. I'm like, oh shit, sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that. I just meant to say it like this.
Yes.
Or what I mean by this is, you said it like this, or this is what, this is how I understood it. If you didn't mean it that way, how do you mean? Or, you said you're going to get this done and it's not done and it's been 3 days and you haven't given me up, whatever it is. I feel like the reason why I get maybe a buffer or a grace is because I've got really good relationships with people and I take the time to build those relationships.
Yeah.
I feel like people get, and I'm sure people will take this the wrong way, but people get offended very easily. I get insulted all the time to my face, and you just pick your battles, because I'm too tired and I don't have time to be offended all the time. I don't have time to correct people about what they think all the time. It's not my job to do that. My job is to turn up in the world and do the best that I can. So you can tell me, I've had people tell me to my face, managers, males, that will tell me, you should smile more when I'm delivering a report. That all they get from that is that I should smile at them more, and that would make them feel better.
Yeah, it would make them more comfortable if you smiled more.
And because when I'm saying, I've got this, resting bitch face that is my normal face, but you're not paying me. I'm not a model. I'm here to deliver results. You want an update, this is what it's going to be. I don't need to deliver the report and smile at you and look beautiful and, dress the way you want. So I easily could have become offended. I could have made a complaint. I could have made a fuss out of it. But at the end of the day, is that going to make a difference? No. No, it's not. Me turning up in the world and still doing my thing is going to make more of a difference and more of an impact. And so I don't have time to get offended. And sometimes I laugh about it. I'm like, that guy just said this to me. And then I'll just walk into my work site with all the boys. And I'm like, can I swear? I'm like, I stopped myself. I was like,
I think that ship has sailed.
This guy just said this to me. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
And then we were like, some things still need to change. Absolutely, some things are going to change, but you need to pick your battles and you're in it for the long haul. If you keep getting offended or upset about every little thing that goes on, you're not going to sustain the long haul. The long haul was me being here 18 years later, still in business, not throwing the towel in because people offend me and upset me, because they're being sexist, because they're being racist, because they're being whatever it is that they're being. I'm here because I didn't get offended so easily.
It's quite an interesting topic, that being offended point, because part of my view on it is it's a lot more about the person who has been offended or their reaction to it than, say, your delivery of something that has then offended them. Because you just said before, I say things that offend people all the time, and I try and change it. And it's if you're approaching things with a good intention and good heart and good research and you're backing your work, yet they're offended that you haven't smiled while you're delivering the report, that's not your problem.
That's right.
At all. You don't need to adjust your behavior or your face or your anything. You're there to do your job and you're delivering it and you're living by your values, and that's who you are. If they want to sit there offended by how you've delivered it or that you've hurt their feelings, then they probably need to look inwards and say, well, what about this has impacted me? Why am I offended? How can I communicate that in a way that perhaps our next interaction can be more positive? But you're not the one who has to make all the change. You know what I mean? Whereas I'm not sure there's a lot of that self-awareness around generally.
And you can't do anything to change that. So if the person that's saying that feels the need, that they're usually not in that space that they're even aware that they've offended or they've said something that is completely inappropriate or not okay, they're not even aware of that. So if they're not aware of it, I guess I could call them out on it, but if they're a client, what does that mean for my business? What does it mean for X, Y, and Z? So I pick my battles. And, I've got, for example, a tradesman that I am still friends with today. He is, I want to say 70 something.
Okay.
And he's so old, right? Male, European descent, and he's a tradesman. And we have massive blues on sites because I'm the project manager and he has to listen to me. And I'm the head contractor, so I'm the builder and I sign off and everything. And he has to listen to me. And he would be like, you know what I think of your program? I'm going to scrunch this up. I'm going to use this as toilet paper. I don't really care what the hell you say. And I'm like, I was about to say his name, but I'm not. I'd be like, buddy, there is a project that we are going to deliver and we're going to do it. So I don't really care about these conversations. You can say what you want, but you are going to deliver this project. And so because I don't get offended, because I'm there on site, because I show up and I'll question all the tradies on the work progress. And at the end of this very high 12-week program and delivery we had to do, he saw that I delivered on everything. He respected me more for it. And we are still friends now today. And even though we had our blues and I could see that and so as I'm on site and I can see, okay, you're a 70 years old European male that's, 70 years old, you don't have females on site, let alone young females and, women of color. He tells me my wife is at home. She brings me coffee every morning. She warms my socks in winter before I go to work. This is her job. And I'm like, I would fucking never be... I would never be married to you. There is no fucking way I'd put up with that shit. And so because I can get real and have these hard, whatever conversations, uncomfortable conversations, they're not hard, they're uncomfortable conversations, but because I get real with it, he respected me for it. So if I was chucking a hissy fit and I was offended at the very beginning, hadn't removed from my site, there was no opportunity for him to get to know me and for me to get to know him. I'd already known him for a long time and I already knew that about him. But it went even deeper and to the point where at the end of this particular project, he had so much respect for me. And so again, I would pick my battles and, having these conversations and being able to throw it back at him and then being able to show up and do my thing, I showed him the results and I earned his respect. Not that I needed to earn his respect, but what else am I going to do? How else am I going to change the narrative in the industry if I just chucked a hissy fit and left?
Yeah.
So by being there still and being able to have this relationship with him and having these conversations, it turns it around where when he sees others, he's like, let's see how they are. And he's a little bit more open to something.
I think it's totally valid to be offended by things and call things out and have those difficult dialogues. It's what do we do with that? It's really important actually for things to get uncomfortable and get difficult and someone be offended or upset or whatever it is. But it's what do you do with that next that actually matters? Because you're right, walking out or leaving site or doing whatever helps absolutely no one and actually doesn't get your work done. But it's then what do you do with it? You can be offended, you can have your chats, they can have different opinions, but how do we talk, sit down together and work towards our common goal, which is doing a good job on this project and being true to who we are, living our values, which is, clearly a big thing for you and how you conduct your life and your business. What's next for you? What should we look out for?
Oh, goodness. So I'm still working on big projects. So this year we've got a couple of big projects that I'm really excited to work on to do with shopping centres and, client-side project management, which is more of the space that we're going into. So still in retail, still in construction, still in delivery. And with the shopping centres in Australia, South Australia that we specialise in. So we've already got works in the pipe for the next 12, 18 months because of these two particular projects. But what's new in the pipe for me that is new, that hasn't been announced yet, and I haven't even announced it to my own team, is that I have just accepted a position as a casual lecturer at UniSA. And I'm going to be lecturing on project management. And then again, when, I was asked to consider the position, I was like, why me? Do you really want me? And they were like, yeah, send us your CV and we'll, So I was referred, unbeknownst to me, I was referred to someone by someone, and they were like, yeah, you've got a master's in project management. You've been doing your own business for 18 years in the project management space. You're perfect for this. And I was like, okay. So I've agreed to do that for the next, 6 months or so. So that's a new opportunity for development and growth for me. And it's something outside my comfort zone. So I'm really excited to do that. So another tip for everyone is say yes and do it anyway, even if you're scared. Just do things to challenge yourself and keep growing. So, yeah.
That is great advice, and congratulations.
Thank
How
you.
exciting. If there's one thing you want to make sure people take away from today, or that you want to use your voice to platform, what is that thing?
Get to understand yourself so that you can understand your values, because everyone's values are different. But once you understand yourself and understand your own values, I would encourage everyone to live by their values, because if everyone lived by their values, the world would be a better place. And so if it's female issues or the environment or whatever it is that's important to you, if everyone just did their thing in their pocket of the world, of the woods, their neck of the woods, the world would make a difference. It would make a change without having to do grand things. So people often feel like they feel disempowered to make any difference to the world. But you don't need to make a difference in the world. You just need to make a difference to your little world. So understand yourself, understand what's important to you, and then live those values, and that will make a difference to the world.
I agree with you. Well, I think that's a great place to end, unless you would like to say anything else. But
just thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. And you can put your imposter syndrome in the bin. And I think that's all I've got. So thank you.
Thank you.
This conversation was recorded and produced on Kaurna land. We pay our respects to the traditional owners of this land and waterways, as well as the elders, past, present, and emerging. We extend this respect to all Indigenous peoples of this continent and its adjacent lands, recognising their cultures as the oldest continuous living cultures in human history. We recognise the deep spiritual connections and relationship Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have with community, as well as the lands, oceans, waterways, air, and sky. We acknowledge the land we live, work, and play on always was and always will be Aboriginal land.